Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate for Wii U, besides having an abbreviation looking like a license plate number, is actually quite a fun game. It's a port and slight upgrade of Monster Hunter Tri. The game's kinda like a twisted version of Pokemon, where instead of catching them all, you want to kill them all and wear their skin. Much like other RPGs, your personal goal is to end up with progressively better gear until eventually you end up with something like a +5 Dragon Boner Club of Hardness that you mod with Herpes gems to add burning damage. But whereas in a normal RPG, such a weapon would be sitting in a random chest, guarded by fuck all, in Monster Hunter, it's up to you to track down the herpes-infected dragon and harvest his, gems. You craft everything yourself from the corpses of your enemies, which is as badass as it is psychotic. Speaking of psychotic, your context for committing all these atrocities against nature seems a bit flimsy. We only have the villagers' word to go by for how evil these creatures really are. In the game, they never seem to pose any real threat until you charge in and start beating them to death or steal their unborn children. I don't feel like I'm saving anyone or accomplishing anything. I feel like I'm just a violent dick that wants better armor. But I am, so I'm cool with that. It doesn't really matter though, since gameplay is the star of this show, and it's pretty damn polished. Every attack and action has a specific animation that takes a deliberate amount of time. The action stays tense because timing is critical. Attack or drink a potion at the wrong time and you're dead. Each weapon type has its own movesets with different strengths, weaknesses, and timings. There are weak as a piss stream daggers for the flailing ADD kids, or if you're good at aiming and where your target will be 10 seconds from when you start a swing, you can try the greatsword. It's one of those rare games that actually does not have a best weapon. It always depends not just on your playstyle and target, but also on your goals for that target. For example, you may need to detach a very tall monster's tail, so you want a lance for the long reach. For me, one of the coolest aspects of the weapon mechanics is all the preparation involved. Choosing and loading special ammo or sharpening my blade before an assault draws me into the game even more and makes me feel like an actual hunter preparing for a dangerous encounter. But I do have to mention that all the ranged weapons cover a pathetic amount of distance. I get that they don't want players sniping beasts from a mile away, but there had to be a better option. I mean, they give you this huge badass rifle that would make a 50 cal go limp with shame, and the thing fires with all the force of a jaggy fart. Monster Hunter 3 is the definition of a gear game, so it goes without saying that if you can't stand grinding, this may not be the cheese to your nachos. These super rewarding and dynamic fights don't feel like grinding at first. But eventually, gear is going to be what's holding you back from progress, and you'll have no choice but to take the grind central junction, which is lined with mobs, bugs, and ore to harvest. Every new enemy you encounter means new weapons and armor are available to be crafted, but you still have to earn all the materials. Nothing is given to you without being earned. Every upgrade, every kill, hell, even every hit is earned through trial, error, and learning. You learn your weapon, you learn the area, and you learn your target, and it's all done rather intuitively. Your weapon and armor upgrades help, but it's your knowledge of the enemies that will make you a badass monster slayer, and that's the right kind of way to empower the player. The monsters have no life bar, status symbols, or notifications. You figure things out by watching their behavior and how they move. They might change red when raging, drool when tired, or start to limp when injured. This is the kind of interfaceless, intuitive visual feedback that I think a lot more games could benefit from to increase immersion. Getting tips and advice from other players who have already learned a monster gives a better sense of teamwork that the co-op fan of me really enjoyed. Alright, so what's the bad? Well, first off, the game has a real problem with loading times. I know this is the result of the game being ported from the Wii, but you can't ignore something that sucks just because it would be difficult and expensive to get rid of. That's why the divorce rate is so high. Basically, you go outside into the wide open wilderness, and instead of huge sprawling landscapes, you're put into what is basically a small room with outdoorsy decor. Going to a different outdoor room means a loading time, and it's not uncommon for your prey to bitch slap your scale-armored ass through a loading screen. On top of that, segmenting the areas in this fashion makes the maps confusing as hell to understand. Imagine I gave you a jigsaw puzzle and called it a map. That's basically what we have going on here. It's obvious the playtesters didn't know what the hell was going on either because they had to number each outdoor loading room and it's still confusing. Sometimes going through a path on the left takes you to a room on the right side of the map. In the heat of battle, especially one where the monsters travel around and hide, I need to be able to tell my location and destination at a glance. You can't do that with this map. Specific to the Wii U version, the gamepad has the life expectancy equivalent of a fruit fly. A monster hunt takes up to 1 hour and the gamepad lasts for 3. Add in the loading times and you can't get much done before the thing starts to die. But at least I can put that hard as balls to read map on my tiny screen. That should make navigating easier. Now I have to look away from the monster that might kill me to see where I'm going. For the record, I actually did prefer the map on the gamepad screen though, mainly because the default D-pad they put on it was useless. Which brings me to a 3DS version specific problem. The 3DS touchscreen doesn't like being groped by your dirty hairy trucker fingers and can only be satisfied by the slick and smooth high-income stylus. So why the fuck nuggets is the camera controlled by a D-pad that half the time won't respond to finger presses? You can get by with the L button letting you look straight ahead until you get into the water and up and down start punching you in the throat. Alright, so this was my first experience with a Monster Hunter title and it's a lot more addicting than I expected it to be. One of my favorite aspects of the game is how a lot of the fan art features armored girls getting violated by monsters. One of my favorite aspects of the game is how huge and lifelike the monsters feel. Tons of time and effort went into the designs and animations and it really pays off. Overall, I really like the game, but as soon as you stop caring about improving your gear, the game as a whole loses its purpose. There's still the challenge of it, which isn't bad on its own, but if you don't like the grind to reach the next set of monsters, that doesn't mean much. Look past that though, and the gameplay is solid and it's a lot of fun with friends. Thanks for watching, see you next time!